another Highworth climate talk session, the first in our new season. Just some practical things. The toilets are along the corridor there on your right, and the fire escape, I think, will escape quickly up where you came in. For those who haven't been here before, you know, Highworth Climate Talks doesn't have any position in the town or status or power. So the only power we have is you. Okay? So I hope you make use of that power and hope that this will empower you to do something. So the format tonight is that we'll have a talk, and then so that everyone can have a chance of joining in without feeling they're talking to the whole group, we'll have little discussion groups and ask you questions to prompt discussion. So that's the second half of the programme. And if you haven't been here before, and if you're not on our mailing list or email list, then do sign up. I'll pass that round. You can sign up to the email list to get emails, or you can sign up to our WhatsApp group, where we have meetings in between, which go into a little more depth and a little more intimate and a lot of discussion and on various topics, and we do that in between these meetings. So if you want to do that and join the WhatsApp group, give us your telephone number for the WhatsApp. So I'll pass this round. I know a lot of you are already on it, so don't worry. Okay, yes, well, our theme today is about keeping warm. It's about saving energy and saving money. But in terms of the climate, reducing energy is about reducing fossil fuels, and so we've got a triple win. You know, we're keeping warm, we're saving money, and we're saving the environment as well. And I just want to, before we ask our speaker, Kate, to take the chair, take the, what do you call it?
I don't know, the session.
Take the session, yes. I heard something this afternoon, actually, on the news, and it was about the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, talking about climate change. Now, usually it's someone else talking about climate change, not necessarily the Foreign Secretary, so that's very encouraging. And I was very encouraged, so I'll read you a bit of what the report says. The report goes, in one of his first set pieces as Foreign Secretary, David Lammy told an audience at Kew Garden that he was putting climate and nature emergency at the centre of UK foreign policy. Highlighting the wave of extreme weather events that have hit countries in Europe, Asia and Africa in recent weeks, David Lammy said that the climate crisis was not some discrete policy area divorced from geopolitics, conflict and insecurity. The threat may not feel as urgent or as real as a terrorist or an imperialist autocrat, he said, but it is more fundamental. It is systemic, pervasive and accelerating towards us. These are not random events, he said, delivered from the heavens. They are failures of politics, of regulation and of international cooperation. These failures pour fuel into existing conflicts and regional rivalries, driving extremism and forced displacement. And it would be a further failure of imagination to hope that they will stay away from our shores. So I was very encouraged, and I think you'd be encouraged to see that coming from one of the top posts in So here we are then. Let's get back to work, and Kate Sylvester will lead the first part of the session.
Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me. A little bit about me. I'm a retired ophthalmic surgeon. I got very fed up watching my patients going blind in the queue. I retrained as a manufacturing systems engineer to do what Brunel did for hospitals for fluorescent ill, to design the flow to get patients to flow through in time. And I was born and brought up in Africa and came over to school here, so I've really kind of, it's my birthday today and I couldn't be thinking back. I've just, I lived in paradise and just watching what has happened to our natural world, and it's always been something that makes me very anxious. So seeing you all here today and hearing that really good news at last, there's a sense at the top of the organisation is really great. So what I thought I'd do this evening is take you through the story of how I improved the energy efficiency of my home, and then open up the conversation of what that means for you. And, we can take the conversation from there. I've also prepared another kind of presentation, which is sort of the how-to guide, and so I've got a whole lot of little handouts and things to help. So does that kind of sound like what you'd like to hear? Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so why did I start thinking about improving the energy efficiency of my home? Well, for me it was about saving the planet. Just appalled by the fact that I keep on watching houses being built without a single solar panel, without a single air source heat pump, just acres of tarmac and roofing, and even little Pewsey, which is where I live now, is now not only flooding for the first time in living memory, but we're also now on the satellite radar as a moderate to severe heat risk. So that means the temperature regularly goes up above 28 degrees centigrade air temperature in the summer. And so people just retreat into their hot homes, and the whole community collapses because nobody's going out when it's pouring with rain and nobody's out when it's too hot. And so it's here and it's now and it's starting to hit us. My house in Warwick was a little 1998 built 2 up, 2 down, very cold in winter, gas central heating, and just bad technology, not really adequate windows and all the rest of it, and that was a recent build. The other problem I had was damp and mould, and I certainly started to get very chesty and there's black appearing around my windows. So again, big ventilation problem. The cost of heating didn't hit me so much because when I was working, but it certainly didn't affect me now, I'm a pensioner. And it was also very hot in the summer, but luckily I lived in Africa, so what you do is you close the curtains down first thing in the morning, you darken the house up, and you live inside. It works very effectively. So, my original plan was to fit this little house out in Warwick. The problem was it was built in an old asylum, and there were deeds of covenant placed by the Earl of Warwick, and so everything had to be within the scope of that original build, and no additions to the roof, which meant solar panels were out, and lots of the residents, moved up there, and it was very beautiful. And Kate said, we're not going to let you change the deeds of covenant because solar panels are ugly, and I just thought, right, so COVID struck and an opportunity appeared in Pewsey, where some dear friends of mine who kept themselves on Rightmove spotted this little house and rang me up and said, Kate, you're allowed to buddy up from tonight, grab your nightie, come down and stay, we've booked an appointment for 9 o'clock for you to see this house. Okay. So little 1965 chalet bungalow in the centre of Pewsey had been empty for about a year. Old capital wall insulation injected in the 1970s, no insulation in the roof, large, lovely, big windows, but glazed aluminium griddle. Still had an open fire, night storage heaters, emergency from the tank, and the energy certificate was F, which is as bad as you can get. And there is no gas in Pewsey, so I thought, wow, have I got the courage to jump for it? Anyway, I did. I put an offer in that day. So, what kind of research did I do? I can't praise the National Self-Build and Renovation Centre enough in Swindon. I mean, it's just extraordinary what you've got to look at there. It's all a little bit sort of grand designs, beautiful kind of wooden made windows and everything, a bit scary, but it really does open your mind to possibilities. And the online courses are excellent. So I did the heat pump course, the installation course, the Windows course, and just got as much knowledge as I could. Lots of family and friends giving me advice, and then In Warwick, I was part of a plan to actually measure houses to see what our energy uses over the day. It's called Catalyst, it was set up by the University of Aston. And I had two lovely engineers who gave me lots of tips there, and I'm very grateful to them. So I appointed a local builder who did my friend's house. I got a quote, I got a budget, took a deep breath. Just had to get technicians to draw up some architectural diagrams because I was going to lengthen the dormer and get the thing through planning. I spent some money on a ground penetrating radar because nobody knew what was underneath the house. I didn't know where the pipes were. We discovered that there was a main electricity cable that didn't appear on the search. So I did do a lot of work just working out where all the drains and everything were. And we started the groundwork in August 2021, which was just clearing a very overgrown Iambi hedge and sorting out the drains a bit. And then started in October on the real renovation. And it took 6 months. So, where did I start? Insulation. And I decided to go with internal insulation into the walls because they were such lovely big rooms that I could afford to lose 6 inches around all the external walls and just bolt it on. It's a little bit more different than that, I'll caveat. I went for double glazed. I did tot up my pennies to see if I could piggyback and manage triple, but actually I went for just double glazed because that's 80% of your insulation in the double glazed windows, a good decent double glazing. Now this was the big expense, and I realise now how absolutely necessary and marvellous it is. This is mechanical ventilation and heat recovery. Has anybody heard of this? Right, okay. What it is a ventilation system that pumps new fresh air into the house, into every room, and then it takes the warm, stale air out and puts the heat from the warm, stale air into the incoming cold air. And so your house is just continuously ventilated, recovering the heat so you don't lose it. And this is an absolute necessary thing if you're going to go for thinking about internal insulation. Okay, because if you wrap up a house under a nice snug duvet, then you get moisture everywhere. And that causes mould and stale, and that's what causes the real problem. So even though insulation is the very first thing to think about, actually it's ventilation. So going around people's homes now as a retrofit advisor, the first thing I notice is a lot of mould because people are shutting off the vents, closing off the vents in the window, trying to stay warm, and we're all getting very chesty. So I went for mechanical ventilation, and it was a big expense, and I could only do it because I was completely renovating the house. But it is absolutely marvellous. Everybody walks in and says, gosh, that's so fresh in here. No, it's always beautifully ventilated. You can't hear the noise at all. I went for an air source heat pump. This was the biggest struggle I had, was just finding a competent supplier and fitter. But there was no gas in Pewsey, and so there was no option really. So that's what I did. Night storage heaters, I switched to radiators. I did think about digging up the floor and getting underfloor heating and decided against it. I put down an insulating layer and bamboo flooring, so wood is a very good insulator. So it does, it's nice and toasty on my little toes. And the outside of the house, I clad in larch, so again, wood on the outside. And I went round switching all the bulbs to LEDs, and still incandescent bulbs everywhere. So that's basically what I did, to give you some idea of just the extensiveness of this retrofit. And I'm not saying everyone's going to do it, but it's to give you some idea of perhaps where houses should go to in terms of new houses being built. So just a sort of little diagram of my house. So there's a concrete slab, on top of that is the bamboo floor, and then I've got bricks and the old cavity wall with some very soggy candy floss injected insulation that's got very wet and it's sort of fallen down. In fact, I'm getting had it all sucked out in my box of pennies. Then there's a absolutely dense breeze block. I mean, so heavy and really solid. And then the insulation went on the inside of that, and then plasterboard on the inside of that. So the insulation shown in yellow. Now, if you go about insulating an old house with internal or external insulation, normally you should put a waterproof, vapour-proof membrane between the brickwork and the insulation. Because what you don't want is water coming through and mould growing on the back of your insulation. But because I've got mechanical ventilation and the house has just been continuously ventilated, I've got away with it, all right? But normally that is something you really have to consider. It's just thinking about wicking moisture away, really, really important. So that's kind of the approach I took. Is that kind of clear about how I did it? So my friends who encouraged me to buy this house, they put external insulation on their house. And again, it has to be able to breathe and wick water away. So the technology's there, it's not cheap to do, but it is there. So that's the thickness of the insulation, like 100 millimetres, 4 inches, and it's around all the external walls inside the house. I don't know if you can see that very clearly. So at the bottom here is just an idea of what we did. This is the dormer being extended to full length, and it's just a timber frame. And then you can see that insulation being put on in the inside of the frame and in the top picture, and then the insulation going up under the eaves on the other side of the roof. And those big ducts are the ventilating ducts coming down from the ceiling, and then into every room there's an inlet and an outlet. And again, because I had a nice big old-fashioned floor ceiling space, they could just run along the inside. They do make narrower ones now that you can fit into a modern building. So how mechanical ventilation works is that on the west-facing gable, I've got vents for in and out, and the large tab in there. And then there's this one's by pentaxia, and it just sits on the inside of that west-facing wall. And then the big pipes come out of it. One's in, one's out, and they feed down the gable, the eaves into the ceiling space. And there's an out in the bathrooms and the kitchen, and an in the other rooms. So it's just constantly ventilating. And you have to just take a little strip off your doors just to let the air constantly move about. So that's how it works. And it is, I thought, it's just a necessary evil because I've wrecked the house out, but I can't tell you, it's made a huge difference to my life. It's extraordinary. So, air source heat pumps. How many people have got an air source heat pump? Yes, starting to happen. Okay. Does everyone understand how they work? Are you all familiar? Yeah? So all they're doing is they're just taking the warm out of the air, transferring it to some sort of liquid, and then that heats the water that goes around the radiators. And so effectively, for the amount of energy you're using to pump the air out, like pumping a bicycle pump, you only use a third of the energy because you're not actually physically having to heat water or air. So it's a much more efficient way of doing it. So mine is a big Dakin fan. It just sits outside the utility. And then on the inside I've got something which is about the size of a normal gas boiler, and a big tank. I got a 300 litre tank. I didn't need a 300 litre tank, but when the family come over, we do. So I did ask for a bigger tank, thinking about the property, I need to sell it. And then I just had radiators, double radiators. If you're changing a house over, most of the time your radiators are too big for a gas boiler. So you can usually get away with just taking the gas boiler out and putting an air source heat pump in. Alright? But there is this myth going around that if you have an air source heat pump, you've got to change all the radiators. It's not true in about 95% of cases. Okay. So friends of mine have literally just taken the boiler out and put an air source heat pump in. Alright. So this is the before state. You can see it's very overgrown, very sad, and the back of the house with a little bathroom dormer. And now it's sort of posh with its new windows and then full extension running around the whole way down the back of the house. And I am very cosy. So one of the things, I've just had my case study published in the National Self-Built and Renovation Centre's information. is that I'm one of the only people who's actually recorded now what my electricity bills have done. Okay? So on the left-hand end is Warwick House, and sort of from the yellow dot onwards is the Pewsey House. So what we can see is this is Warwick with a gas combi boiler running, summer and winter, and you can see that in the cold winter I was spending about 35, 45 kilowatt hours per 24 hours to stay warm. And that funny little 2 up, 2 down, not very well installed, not very well built. Met building regulations, 1998 house. And I was cold. Then I moved to Pewsey, and lo and behold, it was costing me 55 kilowatt hours per 24 hours just to keep 4 night storage heaters on the basic, please don't let me freeze to death setting. I was absolutely frozen stiff. So that was double the square meterage. So the Pewsey house is double what my Warwick house was. I upsized. But I said I was very cold. And then Christmas Eve, my air source heat pump appeared, hurrah, hurrah, and I was nice and toasty, and you can see straight away the massive difference in the cost of heating the house. All right, it's dropped to about a third of what it was costing me with 4 night storage heaters on, absolutely, and a lot, a third less than what I was spending in Warwick. So I was kind of, because you'd have to take a punt, with all this stuff and just do it. And then you can see that in that summer period, that is just the air source heat pump running. Sorry, that's the electricity just running into the house. And then winter comes and it spikes up again. So when it's very cold, less than 0, the pumps have to work much harder. And then it just drops down. And then I had my solar PV and batteries installed last October, and the meter went backwards. Yes! It was so satisfying. And then again, it was coldish, not that cold this winter, but it did go below 0. And again, you can just see that there's a lot less being spent. So there are my solar panels, full length of the house. I've got 12 solar panels, and then I put a battery in, which is 10 kilowatts, and my inverter and all the gubbins in the garage, and it all runs off my phone, and I'm addicted to watching what's going on. So you can actually now see, this is the total house now being heated, so this is winter and summer going along, and you can actually see now that where the solar PV went in last summer, I was still spending about 8 kilowatt hours just running things like hot water, what am I talking about, cooking, lighting, counter ventilation, fridge, deep freeze, all the bits and bobs. And then the solar went in, I had the winter, I'm spending a lot less, and this summer, basically, I'm pretty well self-sufficient. Just a little trickle occasionally if it's been a cloudy, wet, damp day. So I'm saving about 8 kilowatt hours per 24 hours now with my batteries. So that's when we can come backwards, which is why I've got some negative numbers, and that's what I'm actually saving. So for 6 months of the year, summertime, I'm saving that amount of fuel, which works out about £1,000 per annum. And then on top of that, when Octopus start paying me for what I'm sending back to the grid, I'm getting about a 7% return on investment, which is a lot better than I can get in a bank or a building society or the stock market at the moment. Okay, so everyone says, what's the payback period? Well, my payback will be about 16 years. Well, I'm not interested in that. For me now, as a pensioner, it's cash is king, and being able to keep myself cosy and warm is more important. So again, when it's really sunny and cold, the solar panels make a very big difference. They provide about 5 kilowatt hours of energy. The time that I have to really kind of learn how to use it is those cold, wet, windy days. And then I've got 3 settings. I've kind of got an autumn setting, a wet, windy day setting, and then a cold, bright setting. And because I'm getting the sunlight coming in, and the pump doesn't have to work, has to work harder, but it's coming off the batteries. So I'm slowly learning how to drive it. what went well? The builders, fabulous builders, they basically told me what to do and I made cups of tea. Lots of friends offered me showers and Airbnb, which was bliss, you know, you don't have to rent a house for 6 months now and get all the bills, so I could just move out and be sort of unbearable. Mechanical ventilation has been the biggest surprise of all. The air source heat pump works and it's good, lots of warm home, lots of hot water, and it's affordable. I just managed to squeeze underneath the renewable heat insensitive grants before they closed at the end of March last year, so I'm getting about 50% of the cost of my air source heat pump and the radiators and everything back. So that was nice to have. My EPC rating's gone from F to C, and I was a bit, everyone says, well, you could have done better than that, Kate, surely, and I thought, goodness, I can, but it's the way that the thing's calculated now. It's going to have to change, but yes, you know, I'm nice and warm, and it is a green home. And I've got a local firm to do the solar photovoltaic and the battery. They've been fantastic. They've taken on the service and the heat sump pump. And then one of the problems I kind of knew I was going to get was because I've got a south-facing house, it's the solar gain. It's absolutely extraordinary. And then in the summer, I'm having to put the curtains down. I've got this old vine that's growing, and I've got this green wall that I hide behind. So that was, you know, an interesting surprise. It makes a big difference having the solar gain. The niggles, it's getting better, but the air source heat pump market is just, it was difficult to find a company that did a good job. I had sat for supply, just never turned up. I was doing things in the middle of, just after Brexit and COVID, so there weren't any around, so my pot was a bit big for the house. Having to learn how to drive it is taking a bit of time, but I'm getting better at it. And then just learning, as I said, 3 settings. I'm balancing the mechanical ventilation, the air source heat pump, and the solar gain through the windows. And I'm just having to learn to do it a bit, but I'm getting there. Once you've got internal insulation, you haven't got a nice solid wall to be able to hang things up like curtain rods and things, because you've got that 100 mil of Centex. So that was something I kind of thought about. Oh, help, that's going to cause a bit of a problem. One of the risks that I would have had anyway was that I've got no heat or hot water if there's a power cut. So I've got my batteries, which will give me about 10 hours worth of heating. But that's just something you have to think about. So I'm thinking, well, you know, I kept the chimney open, do I need to actually have a long burning stove? And I'd rather not, but it's just something to think about. And then I've got that damp old cavity wall insulation, which actually I want to take out now so it doesn't wick across the cavity. So, so my lessons learned, really. Green technology, use local companies and suppliers recommended by friends and family. I was very lucky. My builders were very well integrated with all the plumbing and electricians and carpenters and things. And it's been good. I should have gone with one company to supply and fit all the green technology, so it could have all been integrated, and I didn't, and that was my big mistake. But the energy companies are now doing this, so I know EDF are doing it, Octopus are doing it, so they will supply you your batteries, your solar panels, your air source heat pump, and if necessary, insulation and all the rest of it. So it's all starting to happen. I would like to have used wool and cork and all those lovely things, but actually builders didn't like them, and they were a lot more expensive. My building material went up by 40% whilst I was doing it. And I would have liked to have done rainwater recycling. So I do collect my rainwater. I detach my downpipes from the drains, so I don't flood the drains, and they go into soakaways. And I'm thinking of putting in rain gardens to catch the water, and I can grow my vegetables in using the rainwater. So, that's me. Nobody's asleep yet.
Bursting with questions.
So, bursting with questions. And
I think there will be lots of questions.
Right, okay. Yes.
Are you willing to say how much you spent?
Yeah. Right, okay. Let me just think about this. I tried to get a grant to do the batteries, and in fact I missed on the Solar Together cheaper version, but actually I I think up to total installation, everything, so 12 panels was about 16,000, which is expensive. But I just had to do it.
For solar?
The solar.
Yes, sorry, I meant for the whole project.
Of the whole project?
Yeah.
It cost me the best part of 200,000, but I have not gone over the market value of the house. That was my absolute cut-off. But it needed absolutely everything doing to it. So I've ended up with a really nice home. And probably about 50% of that was the actual labour cost to do it. I mean, I know lots of people do it themselves, and I just wasn't on that game. So yes, so I was very lucky. Little house that just nobody was buying because it needed so much work, and yours truly just retired and went for it. Yes.
Are the grants that you had, are they still available?
The renewal heating incentive isn't, but there's a new grant that's just come out called Eco4, and it's basically if you have not got gas and your energy performance certificate is less than a D, so in other words you're not a C, B or A green already, you are entitled to have an assessment to see what energy improvements you can make to your home. And at the end of it, I've actually got the other presentation which I prepared. There's actually a government website which I've got, which I'll send out to everybody, and it tells you all about how you apply. So you can do that through the Centre for Sustainable Energy. They will help you apply. You can do it through their joint initiative with Wiltshire County Council, which is Warm and Safe Homes. So there's lots going on. As I said, lots of energy companies are doing it for them. And I think when I last spoke to EDF, if EDF is your supplier, they will actually help you apply for the Eco4 grant, and they will then set about doing all the renovations for you. So there's suddenly, I just felt that the energy has picked up, that the government is serious about this now. We've got to get homes insulated. Yes.
Did you think about sort of so when you went for the heat pump, did you also think about doing one of those, I can't remember what the official name for it is, but reversible air conditioning system things?
Yeah, so this is, again, I can talk about these in my presentation, I'll get the pictures up. When you go into a hotel, quite often you see that there's an air conditioning unit, and it's actually a heater as well. And it's called a split source. And it's effectively an air source heat pump. And they cost about £600 to install, and two people I know who put them into particularly sort of rooms that they use a lot and they want to be nice, so sitting room, place like that. The great advantage of them is, one is that they run on electricity, two, they're an air source heat pump, so they're much more efficient, and three, an electrician fits them all the time. They're doing them all the time in shops, in hotels. You don't need a plumber, which is what you'd need if you're putting an air source, a big ground source or a big air source heat pump like mine is. So they're very economical to do. So if you've got a room that is cold and you think, we could just make this a little bit more comfortable, you can have one of these things installed. And I've got a picture of one actually. I'll just get it up.
And it does cool it in summer as well.
It does cool air in the summer, which is the other huge advantage.
They use them a lot more in the continent.
Yes, they do.
I've seen them used in America. I just don't feel much of a thing here.
Yeah. So here's a picture of one.
Yeah, it's like a cassette or something.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. How
I think you need a fan unit.
Yeah, you do
outside.
need an external unit.
Yes,
Yeah.
here it is. Here we are. That's what it looks like.
There's a lot of industrial buildings happening.
Yeah.
Or half a dozen in a row.
There's a few houses around me that have got a few of these things. I mean, if you're going to do a heat pump anyway, you still need one of those.
Yes, but much bigger.
Yeah.
This is just a ditsy witsy little baby one. So that's the one that's his friends who came
Yeah,
around.
the difference is that is air to air.
Yes.
So it pumps in air rather than transferring it to your
Straight over.
radiators.
Yeah.
So
It's going straight in with those two. Well, it's going through that pipe there, straight into that. The other side of the wall is that little
But it doesn't heat
Maybe.
your water though, so you need another source for doing your shower and stuff then, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. But if you've got one cold room, or a bedroom or a sitting room where you spend a lot of time, and you want to be able to turn the heating down everywhere else, this is a really neat way of doing it.
So I'm wrong in thinking that air source heat pump can also cool the house?
It can, yes, it can, yes. There are options. It's not very efficient if you've got radiators because you've only got that bit that's actually going to cool it. But if you've got underfloor heating and big radiators, you can get them to ventilate the other way. And I have wondered about that. There I am doing my African trip, closing my curtains down and growing my vine in the summer. But again, I'm very comfortable. If it's only a few days a year, but it will get more important, keeping the house less than 28. Yes.
Jerry at the back.
Oh, Jerry, sorry. Right, so thank you, Jerry.
Did I hear you about the energy value of your house going up to EPHC?
Yeah.
With what you know now, and having discovered the self-build and renovation centre, what would it take to push that up to A, and really get serious and go into passive house, the Nordic values?
Right, yeah. Well, that's a very good question. I've kept the chimney open, it's just blocked off with a wad of insulation at the moment. So I am getting some cold coming through that. I'll show you in a moment. The big problem we all have is when you're putting on internal insulation, is at the top of your walls, the insulation goes up to sort of where the ceiling's going to go, but you get these bridges of cold air coming across the top of the wall. So all the way round my top of my walls is this tiny little cold slit, and that's very difficult to sort of retrofit when you're doing an old house. I put as much insulation underneath the eaves as we possibly could, but there are little tricks and things like that. So one of the things I would like is for one of the proper retrofit assessors from the Centre for Sustainable Energy have offered to come out and have another look to see what I can do on top of that. But for me at the moment, I think it's affordable, I'm warm, I'm comfortable, I'm not coughing, I haven't got any mould, I'm okay. And I feel, having gone from F to C is pretty good, but I'm sure there are more things I could have done. But to build a passive house, you really have to think about the whole structure of the building to stop these bridging cold across the top of the walls.
Well, if I could offer, you'd also have to step out of normal building training. You're stepping into a sort of microcosm of very high-level specialists.
Absolutely.
And that sort of thing, it's a real step change.
Yeah. So one is, I was going to sort of talk through, let me just go back up. Ooh. So, what can I do now? So, really thinking about what your problem is, I think for many of us now, with the withdrawal of the pension fuel credit, people are really thinking about cost heating their homes. It's become a real issue, and certainly in Pewsey now, I've got 46 people saying, Kate, please will you come around this winter and help. So really thinking about the problem. The approach I would be thinking about is, do you do just simple changes, like only boiling a mug worth of water in your kettle, turning the immersion heater on a shorter period overnight, all of those changes, and I'm sure many people are very familiar, and I've got some handouts for all of those. Then there's moderate changes, so these are a bit more expensive, so improving the ventilation is the first thing that I'm going to be recommending for a lot of the homes I'm visiting, is just the amount of mould and damp in old homes, trying to understand where it's coming from. Improving the insulation, so just putting a big roll of insulation across the attic floor, making sure it's nice and thick, thinking about other sources, new windows, etc., changing the heating system. So these are moderate changes that stand alone. And then you've got the complicated changes that you're talking about, and which I've tried to do, which is how do you integrate all of this into a great new building without starting all over again with a nice Nordic flat pack IKEA house. You just screw it all together in it, and it works. So thinking about the building structure, the services and the renewables. Ventilation, really big problem. Thinking about how you ventilate your home. You know, it's lots of sort of little fans and they're mechanical fans, but you know, the great thing is they're just sucking the heat out unless you've got some sort of exchange mechanism. It's very tempting just to turn them off, isn't it, and block them up, and that really causes some problems. Thinking about just where the draft proofing happens. So I've got 15% of my heat is going up my chimney at the moment, so I haven't blocked it off yet. I'm still thinking and oohing and ahhing. 10% goes out of windows and doors. 15% goes out the floor. The walls, that was the surprising thing for me. There's just how much goes up. It's a big box and it's just leaking heat. And then the roof, 25%. So just sorting out your roof is a good start. I'm thinking about insulation. I brought a thermal imaging camera with me because has anybody seen one being used?
No, but I'd like to borrow it.
Exactly. Right, so quite a lot of parish councils and organisations have got one, and I was given one by a grant by Highworth County Council as part of my role of doing these talks and things and doing home assessments of people. And they're very they're cake proof, which is quite nice. I'll just turn it on, it takes time to think. So on the left is an architect friend of mine. He's I think they're called energy technologists now. They're kind of a parallel architectural practice. And he has a little thatch cottage in Pewsey, and I went round at 6 o'clock in the morning because he said, Kate, I'll be fascinated, what the heck I do with this old house. And you can just see, I pointed the camera in the centre of his roof, and you can see the degraded thatch just leaking heat out. Then his walls are so leaky that at the bottom left you can actually see the radiator on the other side of the wall shining through. Then he's got his air source heat pump, which he's running to keep the house warm. The conservatory is north facing, so cold it's -4, so they never use it. But it just gives you a sense, and the soffits, that was the interesting thing. He hadn't thought about the heat leaking out of the soffits underneath the hatch. This is what has my house in the study now. I'm a nice toasty 22 degrees C in my study. It's a nice big radiator in there. But you can see the bridging that's happening across at the top of the ceiling, the cold. You see it's all blue, very dark blue, right? And that's this tricky bit of what you do with the retrofit. And I really haven't worked out. As you say, it's very specialist to try and get it to stop.
Well, the initials of the organisation are a sad, lonely bunch of hippies from the 60s that got into this. AECB.
AECB, right.
Association of Environmental something.
Energy
Cozy
something.
others.
Right.
And they're trained, they're accredited, they use this stuff. They can cost how much will reduce how much and give you an idea of your range.
Absolutely, that's what I would like to have done. So improving my appliances, improving your ventilation, as I said, improving the innovative heating and water system. And then thinking about the renewables, which we've talked about. One of the things that comes up with air source heat pumps is that you put one in, you take your old boiler out, and you buck an air source heat pump, and you plug and play, and your bills don't go down. And you think, hang on a moment, Kate's bills went down by 2/3. And the reason is the cost of electricity. All the taxation for switching over to green technologies, which put on the electricity generators, not the fossil fuel industries. So we're paying way too much for electricity. So the only way to get the cost of your air source heat pump down, if you aren't generating some of your own electricity, is to lobby the government and say, come on, this is ridiculous. Why are you putting all the costs on the electricity generators? The other thing to do is just buy a share of a wind turbine. So if you've got a great, huge, 50 gigawatt turbine, a 4-bedroom house, sliced up the turbine, would be one credit card thinness equivalent of the turbine. So you can buy a share for about £3,000, which will cover 120% of your electricity that you need for your house. And then, having bought that share, you then get the electricity from your supplier at generation cost, not distributing cost. And that way, your electricity bills will fall. So So it's a little wheeze that's just started up by this very clever woman at Ripple Energy. So it's starting to happen. So it's democratising energy generation.
Is that based on local projects, or is that just you can buy?
You can just buy.
Ah, fair enough. It's like okay.
So there's a big scheme in Scotland at the moment which they're raising money for. I haven't yet done it because I'm still waiting to get my generation certificate with there.
It's still limited to certain suppliers.
Pretty well at the end, everybody does it now. So Octopus do it, EDF do it. I think pretty well most people, even OVO do it. So it's starting to happen. Okay? So you don't have to build your own wind turbine, you just buy a share in one.
How long's that for? Is that?
Ever and ever, amen. So you can hand it on to your inheritors, but you can't sell it. So if you decide to sell up, you sell your share back to the company and you get your...
What if you change the company?
You can change supply, it should still work, but you have to sell it back to Ripple or whoever else is doing the generation scheme.
What would happen if your turbine blew down? Do you
But these are really, really, really big turbines, so you're not buying a specific size of a specific turbine. It'll be one of the turbines out in the North Sea.
You don't have to pay maintenance on it or anything.
But that's all included in the charge. I love. So, but it's just, it's a tiny amount. So it's, again, it's about, I think you're putting in about sort of £3,000, but you're getting all your electricity then at a third of the cost.
Thank you.
All right, so it's just started up. That's one way of getting. So, okay, so yes, lots of places to go to. I wish I'd known about the Centre for Sustainable Energy. They've got lots of resources about how to assess your home. Sorry, the slides aren't very clear on the wall in the slide, but I'll send them out to everybody so you can see them. Lots of resources to help you. Wiltshire Climate Alliance, which we're working for at the moment. Again, got a very good home improvement guide with lots of information on it, and again, I've just shown how the route you get to it. You can also organise a home visit, and I wish I'd done this. It was going to cost me £1,000, and I just thought, oh God, I'm not going for a grand design home, and well, I've got my little pension on, I don't really know what to do with it. But it's well worth it if they come in and they actually measure it. So they measure your, oh gosh, sorry. So they actually measure your performance differently to the way it's done at the moment. The thermal imaging camera and fans to blow air into your house so they can see where the drafts are all going. And then they do what you suggested, they do the modelling. They say, given that this is a Victorian building with a blah 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 and made of brick, how much heat are you going to lose out? Where's the best place to put your insulation? QED, the best bang for your buck is to do this, this and this, using this, this and this. And then you know where you are. So definitely, if I was doing it all over again, I would do that. I now know. And then there's Cheese, who do the similar thing for people who are to the sort of Trowbridge area, which I think they get as far as there. So I'm going to leave it there, because I think that's enough pictures, and I'd much rather we all had a conversation about...
There's a question
There's a
over.
question at the back. Hi, sorry.
Hello, I'm Adrian.
Hi.
As you will gather, I'm not native English. I lived half of my life in the tropics, where the emphasis is on ventilation and shading of walls and windows. One of the things I noticed when I came to live in England is how poorly ventilated houses are, which I think contributes to a lot of the illness that we have. In your work, having installed the ventilation system, how do you feel about living in a house where you, more or less all the time, have to keep everything closed up?
No, it just runs. I can open the windows, I open the doors. I don't have to keep it all closed up.
Right.
But when it is closed up, it's still ventilating.
So you can open the
Yeah.
windows on all day?
Yep. All nights particularly, vent the house. Yep.
Did you, when you were looking at your house that you wanted to convert, what consideration did you give to its orientation and the need for it to be shaded for the warmer conditions?
That's a very good question. It's south facing, but there was no access into the garden on the south side, which is why I put that great dormer in, because I wanted to get some light from the south. And I did think about whether I should put solar covering on the double glazing. But then the disadvantage of that is that I lose the solar gain in the winter. So it's quite nice in the morning to get rested and light. So it was south facing, which was ideal. I got a lovely view of the garden and all the positive side of the solar gain, but I recognised, like you, having lived in the tropics, that it was going to get hot. So I basically made sure that I just draw the curtains when it gets hot, first thing in the morning. And I've got this lovely old vine, as I said, which I've just used as a green wall, and it grows in the summer when it gets very hot, and I get lovely grapes. I've just harvested some. And then in the winter, the leaves fall off, and I get the solar gain again. So I did think about it, but I know that in Australia, particularly friends who are down towards Perth, there they've actually got a covering on their double glazing, which prevents the heat getting in. So it is all starting to happen. Thank you for your question. Right.
Okay, well, shall we have some
Questions?
chatting?
Yeah.
Were you wanting to go into the groups now? Or?
Well, we just basically open up the conversation, basically. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think you had given us some ideas of questions, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
And the first one was, and maybe you could discuss this amongst people close to you, what factors stop homeowners improving the efficiency of their home? Okay, so chat with a few people around about question number one, and then we'll come back and share our thoughts. What factors stop homeowners improving energy efficiency? Which has disappeared.
Sorry.
Which was, what would you need to improve your energy efficiency of your home? So there must be probably several answers here. So would someone like to represent your group?
Well, we said love the drafts. You need to know where the illusion is.
Yeah. Yeah, you can use this, but actually I've got a little device which is just a little laser gun that you can point at the wall and it tells you the temperature, and that only cost me 20-something quid. So you can go around the house, pointing it, and that's what we did. So yeah, looking out for drafts, that is key. So yes, anything else from that group?
Well, insulation.
Insulation, what kind of insulation?
Well, either cladding inside or something.
Yeah, that's quite a costly
And there
thing.
is some outside of it, something you look from.
Yeah, yeah. Did you talk about cladding?
Why is it pretty efficient?
You mentioned
External cladding.
external cladding. Was that for insulation?
I didn't do it, no, but I did large cladding,
Right.
which is in itself a good inch thick and is a very good insulator.
So that
on
is
the external.
that did help with your
Yeah.
wall insulation.
Yeah.
Excellent.
But it's more beauty before purpose. For
Okay.
that one. Yeah.
More beautiful. Okay. What about this this group over here? So some thoughts.
I think we tended to drift a little bit off.
Well, tell me some drifts.
However, if you want an answer, what would I do to improve the efficiency of my house? I would look at the ventilation and air tightness of my house,
Yeah.
and I would seriously think about some sort of heat exchanger operating ventilation system.
That's
Now,
quite
I think
quite a
I
major
need
thing.
to do that in order to get the house ready for an air source heat pump, which ultimately I'll have to have my current heating is, it's about 15 years old, and I think sooner or later it will just die. And I don't really want to get in and having to install the same kind of thing again.
Yes, the heat
So,
exchange system was
Preparing
probably
my house for that change, I think, is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, I've been talking to Ian Beeland, who's the kind of great guru, did 3 hours some time ago. I play with him. He's the great guru working with the government at the moment on air source heat pumps and trying to get the cost of electricity down. Basically, you can heat any space with an air source heat pump. So Bath Abbey is heated by an air source heat pump. Leaky old Abbey, right? It's just going to cost you a lot of money to run the fan to get the heating to heat. So you don't need to, you can just literally plug and play, put your boiler in the skip and put in an air source heat pump. You can do it that way. The problem is the cost of electricity, is that that's what makes it expensive initially to run it. You won't save money. So yes, sealing up your house will help by insulating it, but you don't have to do that first before you put the air source heat pump in.
The work they did on the heat exchange was a lot of pipes and a lot of changes. Is there other options which are very much simpler, where you can just sort of plug something into the wall with a hole?
Well, the split source, the single thing I've shown you, the hotel's air conditioner, that will take some of the, because it is ventilating, it will take some of the
Right.
condensation
So it
out.
takes some of the
Yeah, but it won't
clean
do that.
air outside
Yeah.
and brings it in
Yeah,
and warms it up on the way in.
a little bit. Yes, some of them do that. I think this is the big problem. I think there is very little technology that you can actually get the house to ventilate when you seal it up without taking the ceilings down and putting in all the piping and everything to do mechanical ventilation and heat recovery. So I think it is a big issue. It's a big thing that people aren't thinking about. So they've got, how can we heat the houses, but we're not building our houses so that they're well ventilated but sealed. And that is an issue. So I haven't really come across.
It seems a contradiction in terms, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, any more thoughts from this group here?
Hassle was one of the things that came up a lot.
Sorry?
Hassle of stuff.
Hassle.
In terms of stuff that prevents you.
Yeah.
Just the fact of, you were able to move out your house.
Well, I did. I lived in the house for most of it, but there were
yeah.
periods where,
But there's also complications in this different schemes as well. Like I can't remember if it's ended now, but government scheme about funding heat pumps only works for a certain type of heat pump, but not for other types of heat pumps and stuff. And it's very complicated around a lot of that kind of stuff, and it's just it could be streamlined. But.
Yeah. I've got a friend who lives down in Amesbury, and she's just had Octopus put in her panels and her air source heat pump, and she's literally done a plug blade, get the old boiler out. So I'll find out how she's been. It's been her first weekend it's been running. So it's starting to happen. It's starting to happen. But we've got the skills, we've got the technology. But all these things, people have had a nightmare with local suppliers jumping on the air source heat wagon and then not having the people with the skills and competency to drive them.
Independent advice would be nice.
Independent advice, yes.
I mean, for getting people ring up and leaflets through
Oh,
the
I know.
they're all selling their own things.
Yeah, well, in that case, I would go to the Centre for Sustainable Energy and ask for a home assessment. It'll cost you about £600. They're doing a discount now. So if it's a 2-bedroom house, it's less. 3-bedroom house, it's less. 4-bedroom house, it's a bit more. But it'll cost you about £600. But if you're thinking about really looking at your building, it's the thing to do.
At some point they're going to get it sorted out, because if you think that in Norway, much colder than here,
exactly,
they have them all over the place.
Yeah.
It's normal. So we're struggling to bring it into our old houses.
Exactly. Germany have done it.
Yeah.
But it's not the problem. The air source heat pumps work. There's no doubt. You just plug and play them. Take roll it out, put an air source heat pump in. Work 95% of the time. The problem is that it will not drop the cost of your heating.
And I
Because
think
the price of
those
electricity.
people who were doing it early, 5 or 10 years ago, were using the technologies that have been brought about in Europe, which used a lower temperature.
Yes.
But now for our conversions, our house conversions, they're bringing in new air source heat pumps with a higher temperature, which are more suitable for...
Mine's a low temperature one.
Right, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yes, moving around here, any thoughts from at the back?
I would put in the ventilation system. That's what really, I find that quite attractive. I'd like to do that. But
Right.
what would that cost on
Lots.
just an average house?
Lots. I mean, it's not cheap, because you have to take the ceilings down.
Oh.
Put the ducts in.
I
Change your
withdraw that comment. Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's not easy doing it. I mean, I only could do it because I literally was pulling the house apart.
Okay, thank you.
I did think about it in Warwick, and you get narrower little pipes and you can retrofit it, and then you put the ceilings back up. You can do it, but it's not without disruption and hassle and cost. I know, but if you're going to come to doing a major redecoration or something, move a room, but
Okay.
ventilating is a real problem.
Did you have a...
Yeah,
comment?
I'll give a quick comment. So what I did on my old house was I did insulation first and then solar panels. Just sort of because you mentioned that frightening figure at 200,000, what it cost me was £6,000 for the insulation, which is external wall insulation, and about £10,000 for the solar panels. And the main other thing I've got to do is draught-proofing. Now I'm in a different house now, and draught-proofing is the number one thing, because on a cold winter day, you can just feel the cold air coming in through the cracks all over the
All
place.
over
And
the
it's
place, yeah.
So for me, that is the absolute number one most
Yeah.
important thing, the draught-proofing. In terms of the ventilation, you can of course get these single room exchangers for kitchen and bathroom
Yeah.
at much lower cost. They're about £300 each, but you have to install them obviously.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think people should be frightened of
Yeah.
doing that. It is really important to draft-proof as much as you can. Don't worry about people that say that you need a bit of ventilation, because of course you open the windows in the day when it's warmer, 10 degrees warmer, and then at night you close them. So I think for me it is that.
I agree. I think this is why having your house properly assessed is really important, because if you've got areas of damp and a leaking water or a leaking something that's making the water wet, that will really cool the house down. So you have to really think about what is right for your house and do that assessment at the beginning. I'm completely with you on that, Julian. It is so house specific. It really is. You can't just copy and paste from somebody else.
So, the last group here.
We talked a lot about drafts as well.
Drafts.
Yeah.
And where the heck are they coming from? You can feel the cold air coming up at foot level.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what we can do about that, because we've got foam underlay and nice big thick carpets.
Well, you went the opposite way, and you actually had extra gaps under yours because you had the ventilation
For
system.
the doors, yeah.
But if
yeah.
you haven't got the ventilation system, it's a real issue.
Yeah, exactly. And you end up sort of, a
But
square piece of foam tucked under
It's,
the door.
it's the easiest thing to deal with. I went online and I looked at various draft excluders. Just Google draft excluders, and they'll show you lots of different types. And I settled on one particular type, and it's absolutely amazing what it's done. But it's really made it snug.
Yeah.
So have a look online. Look at the different types. Some of them are sponge ones, which I didn't find very useful, but if you want some advice on what I did, I can show you what I did.
Just on that point, the cheese survey does sort of show you exactly where the drafts are coming in.
Can you say what cheese is?
Yes,
please?
it was on Kate's slide, but it's a survey methodology in Bristol where you put a door fan in the door to create a draft if it's not already windy outside, and you use a thermal imaging camera. You heat the house up, and you use a thermal imaging camera to see where the cold air is coming in. With a really high resolution thermal imaging camera, you can actually see the drafts coming in and swirling around, which is quite impressive.
Yeah.
But even with a fairly cheap one, you can still see the cold bits where that draft is coming in. So that is what I would recommend on that sort of house if you can get it. And that's something we're trying to set up to do, but
So what,
we haven't
can you
yet.
say a little more about how the cheese system works?
Yeah.
Scheme works.
So
Can people here access it?
yeah. So the way it works in Bristol, where it started off, is that this organisation set up with a low-cost thermal camera connected to a laptop, and they go around the house with the householder taking video. Well, they warm up the house. They put the door fan in so that it sucks out the air so that you get the cold drafts coming in, and they do this in the winter. Then they go around the house with a thermal camera taking a video of all the places where the cold air is coming in. They give the video to the householder, and then they sort of go through it and tick off all the places where it's coming in. And they follow it up 6 months later, and they find that they get quite a good rate of people actually being happy with what they've done. So that's how it works in Bristol. I'd really like it if we could get that going in Wiltshire, and that's what we're going to try and do over the next year or two.
Yeah, and the Centre for Sustainable Energy will do exactly the same thing with a proper assessor.
Yeah, but, well, it's different. I mean, the cost of that is about £200 per house,
Yeah.
whereas CSE will be charging you,
Well, they've got a discount on at the moment, so
Yeah.
they're getting as competitive
it's
as
about £600 or something, I think.
four bedroom
Something
house.
like that.
Yeah.
So that's not too bad, but I had a CSE survey, the free one that we gave out with,
Centre for
sorry,
Sustainable
yeah,
Energy.
the free one that we gave out with Green Open Homes, and they didn't actually do any thermal imaging. They simply modelled the house and the walls. So I'm still none the wiser as to where the drafts are
Yeah,
coming
no,
in.
I think the thermal camera is actually a very useful thing to actually place
You
around.
know, I went there, they had the draft, the blower thing, and they did mine, do you know?
So you had a CSE survey where they did use a blower door, did you? Okay, so there must be different types of survey. We ought to
Yes.
clarify
So
this.
that was a future-proof survey.
Yeah.
But they are part of the Centre for Sustainable Energy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
So at the back.
Yeah, when we bought our last house about 10 years ago, I remember we had an EPC certificate, which I think we have to do with all homes. And on it, it had their sort of tips for making it more efficient. And the number one tip was to dig up all the concrete floors and have insulation put under them, which is what they do in new houses, I think.
Yeah.
But again, it's a little bit like Miriam's ceiling. It's probably not really going to want to do.
I think there's a lot of criticisms about the EPCs and the metrics they use, and I hope that they will completely get rid of it and start again with a new system. So yes, last group here. You've had your last one. Okay. So are we on to question 3 or?
Yeah.
The question 3 is, what do you like about the system that you have that you don't want to change? What you've got your existing system. What do you not want to change? Okay. What do you like about your home's energy system that you do not want to change?